time. That's not what he said. I got a little carried away. Mike said again, Paul, it's just business. Paul was so hurt by this, they never spoke again, but it gets a little bit worse because Michael Jackson was known for his generosity. So throughout the years, many musicians start coming out saying, look, Michael Jackson bought my songs and he just gave them back to me, or he gave me a massive percentage. Little Richard, a music legend who was famously screwed by his labels, Michael Jackson gave him all his songs back. Meanwhile, Paul MacCartney doing the calculations, he said, music legend screwed by his label. That sound like me. Where are my songs back, Michael? You know where Paul MacCartney and the Beatles songs were? In commercials. And Paul MacCartney never wanted his songs to be in commercials. Michael Jackson, since he owned the publishing, started putting them in commercials. Michael Jackson starts making racks, projected about $50 to $200 million a year from this music catalog. In fact, when Michael Jackson passed away, the music catalog he bought for $50 million was sold for $1 billion to Sony. And Paul MacCartney said, I understand. He said Michael Jackson did what any businessman would have done, and he totally gets his decision. And as for the Beatles music catalog, Paul MacCartney is actually getting a lot of those songs back because of how the United States copyright laws work. But sadly, Michael Jackson and Paul MacCartney, after their final phone call, never spoke again. So never mixed business and friendship. But that wasn't the lesson. It was something about betrayal. Don't betray people either. Now, what's interesting to me is I feel like this story doesn't really have a right or wrong answer. At first, I was saying, look, Michael Jackson just made a business move. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Now, I still think that, but with a caveat. I actually put myself in Paul MacCartney's shoes, and I was thinking, bro, if my boy bought my life's work, I would be heated only because of the fact, listen closely, Paul MacCartney didn't know how much his own catalog was worth, how much his publishing was worth. So in Paul MacCartney's head, he's thinking, look, Michael Jackson made all this money off Thriller. Michael Jackson got stacks. He's taking my songs and he's probably gonna make money, but not as much money as he's already making. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jackson, on the other hand, knew how much he was going to make off of Paul MacCartney's catalog. So I feel like the difference lies in how much these two knew about music publishing. Because again, in Michael Jackson's instance, he's saying, why would I give you your songs when I know your songs are going to make hundreds of millions of dollars? I'm giving you hundreds of millions of dollars. Paul MacCartney's thinking, bro, you probably gonna make like $1 million at that. You making like tens of millions on Thriller. Like, you just being selfish. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I feel like years later, Paul MacCartney, after he saw how much his music catalog actually made, said, okay, Michael Jackson just did what any businessman would have done. Now, if you were in Michael Jackson's position, what would you do? Would you give your friend their catalog, or would you keep the whole thing?